Good to have you back with us once again as we continue our focus on what is now stage 5 blackouts around the country. The continued load shedding is causing chaos in the traffic, and we know how much damage it's doing to people's appliances as well. But let's focus on Johannesburg as well for a second, one of the most populated cities in the country. There's fears that these rolling blackouts will have a dire effect on the city's water infrastructure and also service deliveries. So how is it being handled, and can it be handled? Joined by the MMC for Environment and Infrastructure in the City of Johannesburg. There's Michael Sun for us. Michael, good morning to you. Welcome back to eNCA. Good to talk to you. So how much of a disaster is this, first of all, for water infrastructure? How worried are you?
Good morning, Gareth. My apologies. I can't seem to hear you. I don't know whether
let me try the question again, MMC. Are you able to hear me now, Michael? Is it clear enough now? It looks like we might be losing Michael Sun for the moment. What we are going to do, however, is we're going to try and just quickly reconnect back to Zoom as well, because what we've been hearing while my team gets Michael Sun back on a different Zoom session for now is the kind of issues that this is going to have for water infrastructure. The problem is, and this is the reason I wanted to talk to Michael Sun, is when the power goes out, we know it starts causing issues as far as the water pumps are concerned, which we then know causes a problem for water availability. Michael Sun, I believe my team has tried one more time to reconnect with you. Michael, are you with me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, Gareth. I'm using the earphone. I hope you can hear me too.
I can indeed. Joys of technology. This is such fun these days with the power cuts and Zoom, isn't it? All right, let's pick up again, shall we? How worried are you about water infrastructure? I mentioned a moment ago it could cause a problem for water pumps at reservoirs. Am I on the right track?
Gareth, you are absolutely on the right track, because load shedding does impact the pumping capacity at pump stations, not just in terms of Johannesburg water, but I think also impacts on the rainwater pump stations. So what we're trying to do is that we obviously trying to eliminate as much as possible load shedding effects at the pump stations. However, because of how the infrastructure is laid out, sometimes it is very difficult. But more importantly, what we also pick up is the level of vandalism and cable theft in the area. So even if there is still power supply that is being isolated to the pump stations during load shedding, cable thieves and vandals then look at the load shedding schedule to then operate around that to make sure that there's minimal risk of electrocution, so they can steal cables and steal infrastructures, and obviously that inevitably impacts on the pumping abilities at the pump stations.
Yeah, because I see local government is getting a bit of a rough ride at the moment, saying, but why aren't we putting generators at these water pumps? Why aren't we putting inverters and UPSs? Michael, I suppose the problem is because it's getting stolen. The crime in our country is making the blackouts and the knock-on effects even worse, isn't it?
That is a serious problem and obviously a grave concern for us, but we obviously would not stop at that to say that even if there's a potential element of crime to steal our solar light units, generators, in fact, we are rolling out a plan where we'll be installing battery packs, and I suppose I shouldn't share too much of these details so the criminals don't get information of this, but we certainly want to, install alternative source of energy supply at pump stations. So even if there is load shedding or some kind of breakdown in supply, that our water pumping abilities and supplies reticulation of water to the residents won't be impacted.
Yeah, I suppose this is the problem with living in the country that we're living in at the moment, is you can't even actually really give us detailed solutions, because someone watching might go, I can grab myself a generator or a UPS from a local water pump as well. When we now taking a look at as far as the amount of water at risk, are we talking citywide, or are there particular water pumping stations that are of particular concern for you, Michael?
Gareth, it's more isolated for us at this stage. For example, if the Rudaport substation, for example, that the cables were stolen from it during load shedding last weekend, they inevitably impact on the electricity supply to the areas we're looking at. And we certainly are then going to be installing, in fact, intensify security deployment in terms of warm bodies, technologies such as CCTV cameras, alarm systems. And rightfully, as you've said earlier on, we are living in a country where crime is at a level that we are spending millions and millions of rand guarding infrastructure where we shouldn't have to. But it is time that we need to do it, even if it's going to cost us a lot of money and a lot of resources. We need to protect our infrastructure to ensure that vandals and thieves don't get to it. And we are then able to provide our residents with uninterrupted services.
I suppose we also need to talk about an area. I know you just spoke about Roodepoort, Michael, but we have our reporter Aviwe Mtila out in North Riding for us, and that seems to be an issue in North Riding at their substation. Is during the blackouts, the cables and the switches inside of the actual substation are being stolen during the load shedding when it's all dark, and then when the power comes on, the substation is blowing out. I mean, that's also the kind of knock-on effects that's affecting residents in North Riding, isn't it?
It is correct, Gareth. And again, where you have open spaces such as North Riding, the criminals are then easier to do their work, especially when there's load shedding, there's no power. So the risk of being electrocuted is minimal. That's where they go and steal our fuses, our switches, and these obviously fetch a handsome amount on the black markets. Even as your mini substations on the side of the road that we were taken to, they in fact stole the entire substation. So it is a very serious concern for us. As I've indicated to you, what extent do we have to go to protect those infrastructure? We certainly cannot deploy a security guard at every single mini substation or every cable spot. But it seems like that we certainly will have to work around an intensified plan. But to this extent, I really want to thank the residents of Joburg. A lot of community patroller groups have come out to assist us. In fact, we arrested over 170 suspects involved in cable theft and infrastructure vandalism up to date. So we're certainly very positive to say that we will be able to clamp down on this kind of crime in the city of Joburg.
Mr. Michaelson, I'm going to say thank you very much. It looks like our connection to you is finally starting to give up. I'm not going to try another question for now. We're probably going to lose the answer, but I'm going to say thank you very much indeed to the MMC for Environment and Infrastructure in the City of Johannesburg, Michaelson. And this is the issue, isn't it? A lot of people think that it's just Eskom not putting your power back on after the load shedding or Joburg Power not doing it. But the problem is that in some areas like North Riding and Roodepoort, during the load shedding, they're having their fuses and their substations and their cables stolen. So it's not just a power issue. It's the knock-on effect and the criminality of those cables and substations. I wish there was a better solution. There just